Hello, my dears. Welcome back to another heartwarming video here on the channel. Today, I brought you a story that will touch your heart and change the way you see the power of friendship, compassion, and redemption. Imagine a war hero, a man who fought for his country only to be forgotten by his own family in a nursing home at the end of his life. But what if I told you that fate had something surprising in store for him? Something that would not only change his life, but also the life of a troubled young man, lost and resentful, who was there out of obligation. What happens when two generations cross paths, each carrying their own pain and stories, but sharing one thing in common, the ache of loneliness and the hope of finding purpose? Get ready, because what starts as a simple visit to a senior home turns into a journey of justice, love, and most of all reconciliation. Stay with us until the very end and discover how the power of friendship can change everything. Let's go. So, are you ready to experience this emotional story with us? Then come along and let's watch it together.
The afternoon sun, weak and yellowish, filtered through the dusty windows of Haven of Hope, a place where time seemed to have forgotten to pass. Arthur, an 82-year-old man with a face etched by life's battles, stared blankly, lost in memories of a distant past. His eyes, once vibrant, now carried the weight of loneliness and abandonment by his family. He was a war hero, a loving father, but now, just another face among many, forgotten by family and society. In contrast to the melancholic atmosphere of the home, comes Mateo, a 19-year-old with a troubled past and latent rebelliousness. Forced to perform community service at Haven of Hope, he views the place with disdain and impatience. To him, the home was a repository for old people, a place without life or grace. His arrival, however, would be the reason for an unexpected transformation. The first encounter between Arthur and Mateo was marked by a clash of generations and indifference. Arthur, with his wisdom and kindness, tried to connect with the young man, but Mateo ignored him, trapped in his world of frustrations and resentments. The barrier between them seemed insurmountable, a chasm of experiences and perspectives. However, fate, with its unexpected twists, held a surprise for both. A spark of curiosity, a gesture of kindness, a look of compassion, would be the first steps of a journey that would change their lives forever. What would begin as forced community service would transform into an unlikely friendship, a bond that transcended age and social differences, a beacon of hope in the darkness of abandonment. Haven of Hope was an old building, with peeling walls and dimly lit hallways, located in a peripheral area of an American city. The smell of disinfectant and bland food hung in the air, creating an oppressive atmosphere. The rooms were small and impersonal, with iron beds and few belongings. The routine was monotonous, marked by fixed schedules and little social interaction. It was a place where life seemed to have lost its luster. Arthur, a Korean War veteran, had spent most of his life working in an auto factory. He was a strong and determined man, but the loss of his wife, Clara, and the distance from his children had left him weakened. His memories were his greatest treasure, but also his greatest pain. He felt invisible, as if his life had no value anymore. Mateo, on the other hand, was a rebellious young man with a history of trouble with the law. He had grown up in a broken home, without a father figure and with an overwhelmed mother. He felt lost and aimless, searching for a purpose in life. His rebelliousness was a way to mask his insecurity and fear. He saw community service as a punishment, a waste of time. The first contact between them was marked by Mateo's indifference and Arthur's patience. Mateo didn't understand the sadness in Arthur's eyes, nor the depth of his stories. Arthur, in turn, saw in Mateo a lost young man, but with the potential to change. The nursing home was the setting where these two worlds would collide, where wisdom would meet rebellion, and where friendship would blossom. The initial dynamic between them was tense, with Mateo avoiding any kind of interaction and Arthur trying to approach him with gestures of kindness. However, fate, with its tricks, was about to change the course of this story. A small incident, a look of compassion, a gesture of kindness, would be the first steps of a journey that would change both of their lives. One day, while cleaning Arthur's room, Mateo found an old photo album. The images revealed a young, smiling Arthur next to a radiant woman, Clara. Mateo's curiosity was piqued, and Arthur, with a choked voice, began to tell about his great love, about the happiness they felt, and about the pain of loss. Mateo, for the first time, saw the vulnerability behind the grumpy old man facade. That moment was a watershed, a turning point in their relationship. Arthur revealed that his children, consumed by routine and selfishness, had abandoned him. The revelation of family neglect shocked Mateo, who found himself facing a blatant injustice. That day, the conflict between indifference and empathy intensified, and the bond between the two began to strengthen, driven by a painful secret and a growing need for justice. From the revelation about family neglect, Mateo felt compelled to act. His goal became clear: to help Arthur reconnect with his children and regain the love and respect that had been denied him. The first obstacle was the reluctance of Arthur's children to get involved. They responded to Mateo's messages with coldness and indifference, justifying their absence with the rush of everyday life. Mateo, however, didn't give up. He started recording videos of Arthur telling his stories, showing his photos, and expressing his feelings. He shared these videos on social media, hoping that Arthur's family would see them and be moved by his situation. The initial reaction was surprising. Many people were touched by Arthur's story, sharing the videos and sending messages of support. Meanwhile, in the nursing home, another story unfolded. Donna Rosa, a lady with health problems and a mysterious past, watched the approach between Arthur and Mateo with a curious look. She seemed to know something about Arthur's past that he himself didn't know. The dynamic between Arthur and Mateo deepened with each passing day. Mateo became Arthur's confidant, his friend, and his advocate. Arthur, in turn, became Mateo's mentor, sharing his wisdom and his life experience. Their friendship became a beacon of hope in the darkness of abandonment. The routine at Haven of Hope was abruptly interrupted when Arthur suffered a serious fall. The news spread quickly, and Mateo, upon arriving at the hospital, found Arthur unconscious and with serious injuries. The doctors informed him that the situation was delicate and that he would need intensive care. Arthur's fall exposed the negligence of the nursing home and the indifference of the family. Mateo felt revolted by the situation, by the lack of care and attention that Arthur had received. He realized that he needed to act quickly, that he could no longer wait for Arthur's family to be moved. That moment of crisis awakened his determination. From that moment on, Mateo became Arthur's defender. He began to accompany the old man in the hospital, to talk to the doctors, and to ensure that he received the best possible treatment. He also intensified his efforts to contact Arthur's children, using all available means to convince them to visit their father. Arthur's fall was the incident that changed everything. It revealed the urgency of the situation, the fragility of life, and the importance of love and compassion. It motivated Mateo to act, to fight for Arthur's rights, and to challenge the system that had abandoned him. The incident was the starting point for a new phase in the lives of both, a phase of action, struggle, and hope. Arthur's hospitalization brought to light the precariousness of Haven of Hope. Mateo, upon investigating thoroughly, discovered that the nursing home had neglected the safety of the residents, with damaged equipment and overworked employees. Mateo's indignation grew, and he decided to report the irregularities to the competent authorities. Meanwhile, Arthur's story spread through social media, attracting the attention of a local journalist named Anna. She, moved by compassion and the desire for justice, decided to investigate the case and give voice to Arthur's story. Mateo's denunciation and Anna's report put Haven of Hope under the spotlight. The administration of the home, pressured by public opinion and the authorities, began to take steps to improve the conditions of the place. However, the change was not easy, and obstacles continued to arise. Arthur's children, finally moved by their father's situation and the repercussion of the story, decided to visit him in the hospital. The reunion was emotional, marked by tears, regret, and promises of change. However, the relationship between them was still fragile, and healing the wounds of the past would be a long and painful process. Donna Rosa, the mysterious lady from the home, approached Mateo, revealing that she knew a secret from Arthur's past, a secret that could change everything. She offered to help Mateo unravel this mystery. Arthur and Mateo's journey became increasingly challenging, with new obstacles and new revelations. The fight for justice, the search for truth, and the healing of the wounds of the past were the challenges they would have to face together. Hope, friendship, and love would be their weapons in this battle. Anna's investigation into Haven of Hope revealed a scheme of corruption and embezzlement of funds that harmed the residents. The administration of the home, desperate to avoid the scandal, began to threaten Anna and Mateo, trying to silence their voices. The situation became dangerous, and the risk of retaliation increased with each passing day. Meanwhile, Donna Rosa revealed to Mateo that Arthur had been a decorated war hero, but that his past had been erased by a bureaucratic error. She explained that recognizing Arthur as a hero could bring new hope to his life and his family. Arthur's children, despite trying to get closer to their father, still carried grudges and resentments from the past. The relationship between them was tense, marked by arguments and accusations. Healing the wounds of the past proved more difficult than they imagined. Arthur's health began to deteriorate rapidly. The fall in the nursing home had caused irreversible damage, and the doctors didn't give much hope. Mateo, desperate, decided to do everything to fulfill Arthur's last wish, to visit the battlefield of Korea where he had fought in the war. The fight for justice, the search for truth, the healing of the wounds of the past, and the fulfillment of Arthur's last wish were the challenges they would have to face together. Friendship, determination, and hope would be their weapons in this battle, but the uncertainty of the future loomed over them like a shadow. Mateo, with Anna's help, managed to gather evidence of corruption at Haven of Hope and exposed the scheme in a high-impact report. The administration of the home was removed, and an investigation was opened to investigate the irregularities. That moment was a victory for Arthur and for all the residents of the home, a sign that justice was still possible. Meanwhile, Mateo, with the support of Arthur's children, organized the trip to Korea. Arthur, despite his frailty, was determined to fulfill his last wish. The trip was an emotional moment, marked by memories, tears, and gratitude. Arthur managed to say goodbye to his war comrades and find the peace he had been seeking. Arthur's children, after the trip to Korea, got even closer to their father. They asked for forgiveness for their neglect and promised to be by his side in his last moments. The relationship between them strengthened, and family love was reborn. Arthur's health continued to deteriorate, but he was at peace, surrounded by the love of his family and the friendship of Mateo. He had fulfilled his last wish, had received the recognition he deserved, and had reconciled with his children. His journey was coming to an end, but his story would live forever. Back in the United States, Arthur expressed the desire to spend his last days at Haven of Hope, the place where his friendship with Mateo had begun. Mateo, with a heavy heart, agreed to take him back to the home where all the residents awaited him with affection and admiration. That moment was a harbinger of the end, a silent farewell. The previous administration of the home, removed because of Anna's report, tried, in vain, to sabotage Arthur's reintegration. However, the new management, committed to transparency and the well-being of the residents, ensured that Arthur was received with dignity and respect. That small victory represented the overcoming of an obstacle, a sign that justice was being done. Arthur's children, upon seeing their father weaken, joined together to take care of him, taking turns on their visiting shifts. The relationship between them strengthened, and family love became the main source of comfort for Arthur. That union represented the healing of old wounds, a sign that the past was being left behind. Mateo, beside Arthur, prepared for the inevitable. He spent hours talking to the old man, listening to his stories, his memories, and his advice. The friendship between them became increasingly deep, a bond that transcended age and social differences. Donna Rosa, with a mysterious look, approached Mateo, handing him an old object that belonged to Arthur. She explained that that object held an important message, a secret that could change the course of the story. That gift represented a clue, a harbinger of an unexpected twist. The atmosphere at Haven of Hope was one of expectation and apprehension. Everyone knew that the end was near, but the hope of a happy ending still persisted. Arthur and Mateo's journey was about to reach its most exciting moment, a moment that would change everyone's lives forever. Arthur's health deteriorated rapidly, and the medical team at the nursing home no longer had hope. Mateo, beside Arthur's bed, held his hand, trying to comfort him and express his love. Time seemed to be running out, and the feeling of loss hung in the air. Those moments of anguish represented the imminence of the climax. The object given by Donna Rosa turned out to be an old diary of Arthur, where he had recorded his experiences in the war and his deepest feelings. Mateo, upon reading the diary, discovered a secret that would change everything. Arthur had been wronged by a bureaucratic error, and his recognition as a war hero had been denied. That revelation represented a last obstacle to be overcome. Mateo, with Anna's help, decided to use the diary as evidence to claim Arthur's recognition as a war hero. They contacted the relevant authorities, presenting the diary and proof of the injustice. That act of courage represented the final fight for justice, the last hope for a happy ending. Arthur's children, upon reading the diary, felt even more guilty for their neglect. They realized how much they had lost by distancing themselves from their father and how much he had suffered in silence. That reading represented a moment of reflection, an acknowledgement of their mistakes, and a desire for reconciliation. The recognition of Arthur as a war hero came at a crucial moment. The authorities, moved by the evidence presented by Mateo and Anna, decided to grant Arthur the medal and certificate that had been unjustly denied to him. That moment of justice was a victory for Arthur, for Mateo, and for everyone who believed in the importance of recognition and gratitude. Arthur, with the medal on his chest and the certificate in his hands, gathered all the residents and staff of Hope's Haven. He shared his story, his memories, and his feelings, expressing his gratitude for the love and friendship he had received. His words moved everyone, who applauded and embraced him with affection. That moment of unity represented overcoming abandonment and loneliness. Mateo, standing beside Arthur, felt a deep satisfaction. He had fulfilled his mission. He had helped his friend find the peace and justice he deserved. Their friendship had transformed their lives, teaching them the true meaning of love, compassion, and hope. That moment of gratitude represented the culmination of an emotional journey. Arthur's children, seeing their father being recognized as a hero, felt deep remorse for their neglect. They asked their father for forgiveness and promised to honor his memory by caring for other seniors and fighting for their rights. That moment of reconciliation represented the healing of old wounds and the restoration of family ties. Arthur, after receiving the recognition he deserved, passed away peacefully, surrounded by the love of his family and the friendship of Mateo. His story became an example of overcoming adversity, of justice, and of love. Hope's Haven was transformed into a place of hope where seniors were valued and respected. Arthur's journey had come to an end, but his legacy would live on forever. Mateo, inspired by his experience with Arthur, decided to dedicate his life to helping others. He became an advocate for the rights of seniors, a social activist, and an example for other young people. He created a foundation in Arthur's name with the goal of ensuring that no senior would be abandoned or neglected. Mateo's transformation was proof that friendship and love can change lives. Arthur's children, repentant for their neglect, became volunteers at Mateo's foundation, caring for other seniors and honoring their father's memory. They learned the importance of family, love, and forgiveness. The family reconciliation was proof that it is never too late to change and to love. And so, the story of Arthur and Mateo comes to an end, but their message lives on. May this story inspire you to value your elders, to fight for justice, and to love without limits. May you remember that the power to transform the world is in your hands. Now, we invite you to share the story and to make a difference in someone's life.